this afternoon. Or I suppose it's still morning if you're dialing in from California, Alaska, Hawaii, or anywhere else in the Pacific. But without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce our CEO and co-founder, Jordan Moranis.
Hello. What a treat it is to be here with, and the numbers keep rising, over 400 of you from all over the country, and as we've just seen up in Canada, and with Jeff Zwiers. This topic around fostering conversation skills has always been critical for the work we all do, focused on English learners. It is perhaps the most important thing we could be focusing on right now as students are remote, as teaching has gone online, and as all educators are grappling with the best way to make sure that students are having the highest level of quality and authentic interaction that they can. I got to know Jeff probably about 5 years ago. Elevation was launching our first instructional product focused on classroom teachers and supporting classroom teachers in their scaffolding of instruction for the English learners in their classroom. We specifically were focused on interaction, and I was at a conference where Jeff had just spoken, and stalk might be too strong of a word, but certainly kind of aggressively try to find and get some time with Jeff so we could learn from him. And he has been an incredible both mentor and an advisor to all of us over the years. He probably does not need much of an introduction. I'll just kind of highlight. You all probably know he is a researcher at Stanford, in the Understanding Language Initiative. They have had an enormous impact on all of our work for a number of years. If you were to look at Jeff's website, you'll see a couple of things kind of over and over. The word authentic, the focus on conversation and interaction, and the importance of making sure that we hold high expectations for all English learners, that they have the opportunity to drive their own learning. And as my colleague said about Jeff, making sure that we're not creating an environment where students are playing school, but that we are treating them equally so that they have the opportunity for learning just like their peers. And so I'm excited for Jeff's presentation, excited for you all, if you don't know him, to get to know him a little bit better, and for us all to learn together. So I'll turn it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you. You stole some of my ideas that I was going to share, but it's great to be here or wherever we are. And hopefully some of this stuff in this next hour will be new. I think there will be some overlap if you have heard me talk before, but hopefully it'll be helpful overlap and not boring overlap. I'm pretty good with email if you have any questions that go beyond today or want some deeper stuff. There's also my website has a lot of stuff on it, including some videos and a lot of downloadable things you can just use however you want. I'm just going to launch right in quickly to the agenda: introductions and challenges, authentic communication, conversation skills. Some of these are a brief review for a lot of you. Conversation preparation activities. We'll spend a little more time and actually try to model one of those for you, and then we'll move on to the final next steps type pages. So introductions and challenges. First of all, in the chat, if you don't mind, share what are the challenges that we face when trying to build social and conversation skills remotely. So what are Jordan kind of alluded to some of these. What are they? And I'll just read some of these as they come up. With this size of group, they'll come up pretty quickly. But it's not natural. For some kids, it's not even natural when they're with kids, right, with other kids in the classroom, right? Engagement. See, I gotta stop this. Oh, no, it's going way too fast. Okay. Shyness. A lot of kids just haven't been used to, using Zoom or using online tools for conversing. Missing out on nonverbal cues and verbal cues. Afraid to speak. I see this a lot. I'm talking to teachers a lot about these same issues. Sometimes it's internet connections, but even when the internet connections are good, it can be a challenge. Confidence, anxiety, and it looks like there's 70, 72. It keeps on going. So I just want to highlight that some of these skills or challenges and you're seeing probably 100 of them right here. Some of them can be overcome, and I've seen some teachers who, with some time and just practice, giving kids a chance to a little bit like in the classroom. Sometimes it's in the classroom, just those turn-in talks and working on conversations over time can help. It's a little bit even like it's kind of building conversational fluency in a way and letting their brains adjust over time. So, kids need a chance, just like adults need a chance to practice saying what they're thinking and also listening and processing back and forth. And so if they haven't done a whole lot in the classroom, then when you take them into the online space, it can be a big challenge because you've got distractions here and distractions there. And I could turn the camera off, I can turn the mute on, I could turn the sound off, right? There's a lot of that control. And so what I'm going to argue today, and some of you have heard me say this before, is really making the reason for interacting apparent and engaging and motivating. Because a lot of times we're telling kids, oh yeah, I want to hear a good conversation. And the prompt or the purpose for the conversation just isn't there. Or I don't really have a reason to, I don't have anything to share with my partner that's new that he or she doesn't already know. So there's a lot of times we have to, step back a little bit, and instead of just saying, okay, you got to do this skill, this skill, this skill, we've got to set up what I call like a major purpose or foundation for communication, even before the conversations start. And so it's more like, and we'll get into it in a minute, the authentic communication piece is vital to have these, to foster these robust conversations. Now, I'm going to go down to the bottom here. And if questions come up, I'll try to take a look at them, and maybe I'll have someone highlight them for me, just in case, because it's not a straight just me talking the whole time. I want to hear some questions.
Jeff, we'll monitor the chat as questions come up. Perfect. We'll try to break in and just kind of make sure you've got an opportunity to hear them.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. So authentic communication, some of you have seen this. The pseudo communication is really what we're trying to reduce. We'll never get rid of it completely, but we're trying to reduce using language in non-meaningful ways. Basically doing language things for points, or points or praise or making the teacher happy or whatever. Because often when you're doing it for points or in non-meaningful ways, it doesn't stick as well in the brain, and you don't work as hard cognitively, and you don't say or talk or write or read as much. So usually you do the bare minimum. So pseudo communication is usually just enough for points, and it's the bare minimum. Whereas, of course, authentic communication is doing meaningful things. And I put what, that just one person can't do. And I put that because even though I know you could have a nice little conversation with yourself, in general, what we're doing in school, in general, we're trying to, we have other people involved. An author wrote this text. It's stuff that I don't know, or I haven't seen before. And so I can't build the idea the same way without reading that author's text or writing, same thing, that I want to have an authentic reader for my writing. And if I have someone who really wants to build up an idea in their mind from my writing, I'm going to write more and I'm going to spend more time. I might even do God forbid, a second draft, like on purpose, right? Without having the teacher, putting their thumbs on me to do a second draft, because I want to communicate. And that's what I think where we're going. I know this is all kind of idealistic, but we also can't, we can't avoid the idealistic and just keep on going with the pseudo communication. I think that's where we're going here. And I have reading, writing, listening, speaking, and conversation, since conversation is not just listening plus speaking. So that's why I have that C there. And if you notice in the pie chart, you've got a lot of green in a lot of what we do in school, and then some authentic blue and some authentic conversation, although I would say that sliver might even be smaller in general across the board. And so we're really trying to increase both of those, the blue and the yellow, right? The three features of authentic communication, and this is for every single activity. The first one is it builds up one or more robust ideas, concepts, claims, that those all count, but things that are chunky and important, not just these little factoids or little skills that I'm just trying to pass a test with. We're building up ideas in our minds that last. They might last, I mean, hopefully they'll last a lifetime. Some of the ideas that we all have in our heads right now started years and years and years ago. Some of them started when we were in school. Important ideas about how disciplines work, how life works, right? We're building these up. And so one of the things that we can do is be, I'll be in an, observing a classroom activity or observing an online activity. And I'll ask myself, is this building up, or I'll ask a kid, is this building up an idea in some way, right? Now, how do you build up an idea? Is there a clarifying and is there supporting? Now, these are not new skills, right? We tell kids, clarify that, or be clear when you do this, or support that with evidence. Well, what we need the kids to realize is that if you're going to communicate in life, in the future, in the world, you need to be clear and it needs to be strong. It needs to be strong and clear. It needs to be supported and it needs to be clear. You might have a great idea, but if you're not clear about it, it gets lost. It gets lost forever. In some case, we have a lot of kids that have great ideas and they haven't been encouraged or helped in clarifying and supporting them enough. And so these two skills are the two skills I tend to work on, like in a pair share. Like I'll look at a pair share and I'll say, okay, well, I'll tell kids in a pair share, I want the listener, if you're listening, I want you to ask a clarify or support question. Now, some of you might say, well, that's not really authentic. It actually usually becomes authentic because once the kid, even though the kid doesn't think, let's say he needs clarification, when he asks a clarify question, suddenly the partner says something he didn't expect. And so then you have clarification. But if we don't encourage kids to do this, to build these, I call them mindsets or habits of these skills, every time they do anything with language, they should be clarifying and supporting. If they're reading something, we have reading activities where we tell kids to question the author or question the text. That's a way to clarify the ideas in your mind to get them clear, right? Same thing with support. If I'm reading an article, especially if it's an argumentation article, I'm looking for support and I'm critiquing that support right and left. And I'm saying, wait a minute, this is not strong enough support. Or what about this? Why didn't the author include this? Those kinds of thinking is what we're looking for, right, in order to build up ideas. And then finally, the last feature is bridging an information gap. And a lot of you language development folks, know this term quite well. It's the reason language was invented. Language was invented because at some point long ago, the people figured, you know what, pointing and grunting isn't doing it. So we're going to come up with some words, and then little by little, it was, and I needed information from someone else or vice versa. I needed to get this across, and so language was born. But if we're just telling kids, oh, just share a summary of the story we all read with each other, what are they going to do? Is that an information gap? No. I know that let's say I'm looking at Joshua right now, and Joshua's my partner, and we both read the story, and then if the teacher tells us share a summary of the story, it's like, okay, I'm just going to do the bare minimum because I know Joshua already heard it. And is Joshua going to listen very hard? Very well? He's going to work very hard up here? No, he already here. So he's just going to nod his head and kind of act like he's listening. And I'm going to talk and act like I really care about telling you the story. But it's a lot of acting. It's playing school, like Jordan mentioned. And so what we're really trying to do is we're trying to get away from that. How do we create, purposes for these activities that it's not just playing school?
Hey, Jeff, I want to raise a question, but also just confirm. I think this is very much what you're going to get to. So there's a great question, which is, what's a go-to activity for a teacher who has not had a great deal of training in how to deliver online instruction, in particular to ELs? You mentioned kind of a pair share. I think we're going to get to look at a couple of these with even some demonstrations. Is that right?
Yeah. And it's hard to say a go-to activity, but yeah, hopefully something that comes up here. I'm going to share we're going to model one strategy. I'll describe another, and there's two more that'll end up on the resource document that I'll give you the link to. Two more that we won't have time for, but the resource doc is fairly, if you want to ask questions about it to me, offline, feel free. But so you'll have some practical strategies on this resource doc that we won't get to everything. But yeah,
Right.
hopefully that'll help. And I'll also share just a modified pair share, which could also be maybe a go-to activity. Okay. I also put a fly on here. What was your first impression when you saw the fly? Hopefully it was like, ew. And I haven't shared the resource doc link yet. Sorry. Yuck. That's what we want. The more that we let pseudo communication bug us, and I've heard Mike Pence before, yeah. The more we let pseudo communication bug us, the more we address it and we try to shift it over toward something like this, where the pie chart has more of the authentic and less of the pseudo. We'll never get rid of pseudo. You're sitting in a classroom with 30 kids or whatever. There's always going to be time where they're just kind of going through the motions. But if we can reduce that, we can get a long ways, right? If we can go from 3/4 pseudo to 3/4 authentic, that's going to make a huge difference. And I think you know what I'm talking about. In the chat, while I'm kind of transitioning, what would happen? What happens without one of these features? Just choose one and just think, okay, well, for example, a jigsaw often has feature 3, bridge information gaps, but it's often missing number 1 and even number 2. So what do kids do with a jigsaw? Have you ever seen it? They pass the paper around and copy off each other so they can fill in their charts. So the teacher's happy that the chart's filled in. Right? There's so much potential for a jigsaw, but it often gets, path of least resistance. It often gets wasted. Right? Some of these activities have a lot of potential, and with some authentic communication, they can be a lot more powerful. Because, if I get that second sentence out of a kid, that's impressive. Sometimes kids have this one short answer, one word, or one sentence mode, right? They think that that's kind of what learning is, or at least what answers are. If we can get them to the second or third or fourth sentence layer, where they're actually clarifying their first sentence or supporting their first sentence, right, we can get a long ways. And I'm talking, this isn't just, more intermediate and advanced. We can do, with all levels of language proficiency and in all the content areas. We can make this happen. So I'm just seeing some good stuff here: confusion, frustration. If I'm not building up an idea, what am I doing? In a kid's mind, like, what am I doing? If I'm not working towards something, what am I doing? I don't care about the test. How many kids really care about the test, especially the kids we're most concerned about? They don't care that much about the test. And they really don't care about grammar. And so the other thing that in terms of when we're talking English language development, and I was just on a call yesterday, kids don't really care about grammar, but they often do care about communicating their ideas to others or getting interesting ideas communicated to them, right? So the more we can work on that, instead of spending all this time, I think we're doing the present progressive next week. No, it's got to be, I might use the present progressive because it helps me clarify my ideas, but it's meaning first, it's ideas first, and then we use those other things, whether it's thinking skills or grammar or vocabulary instruction. That's all fine as long as it serves that purpose of building up the idea, right? That's kind of where we're going. And this is just another slide I have about building ideas. So we all have ideas in our heads, kind of see those building block type thing ideas in there. One example would be, our memories make us human, and that would be from The Giver. I think this started from The Giver. It could have been, the idea could have been there before The Giver, but let's say it started there. And then it's allowing and encouraging and helping kids build up these robust ideas and language alongside of it, right? Because you need language to do this, and getting them excited about this stuff, and also allowing them to use their own backgrounds and experiences, stuff they've read outside of school, and really encouraging them, and even images, right? Here's this particular person maybe grabbed onto this poster they saw of The Giver, right? So, and notice, like, my memories of my grandma, that's not in the book, but it can be part of building an idea. And one thing that I think is really important here is that sense of agency that we want kids to feel, right? That sense that I can build up my own ideas. It's not going to look the same exact way as some other idea in the classroom. But I'm building this up, and I'm going to keep building it for a long time, right? This is important. So that I think that, and same thing with, wind and water change the shape of the land. We made rain and rivers in our garden. I mean, there's different things that can go into there. The colors more or less refer to clarify and support. So the blue are a little more on the support side, and the pink are a little more on the clarify side. Even though I don't put a lot of definition or contrast to those. Sometimes you can use an example to clarify, and vice versa, right? It's important to be friends with people who are different from us. This came from Because of Winn-Dixie, if any of you read that book. I also, this is a classroom example, but I've also seen teachers modify this online and just build their own, Lego buildings. But these two girls, I think they each read a separate article, so there was an information gap, and they shared it to build up this idea. Whatever, I think they put the idea in the bottom. I'd rather have it on the top, but they started building and just showing it through the blocks, and hopefully it's erasable pen. But it's just a kind of a nice concrete model to show how you build ideas, right? Ways to build up ideas. And then I wish I had a video of the online version, but it's it's just the teacher doing it. Sometimes kids even have the blocks at home, and they can draw on them. People have also used Post-it notes and flashed it up on the screen, Post-its on a piece of paper. There's different ways to show the building. There's a graphic organizer like this. So the sun is the source of most energy, and then you have these different blocks that build up. You can put all kinds of stuff in there: meeting notes, definitions, quotations, questions. There's no really rigid sense. And then I just saw a question about Jamboard, and Jamboard is very similar, right? You can do this kind of thing with Jamboard and some other shared applications online, right? But it's just a way to show, hey, this is what we're building up, and I'm not being real strict. You don't have to memorize all this stuff. It's just I want you to start building up these ideas. So I just have some examples. I won't read them all. Oil and coal come from dead things. Energy makes things go. So there's different things that kids will grab onto. And here's a question: do little batteries get energy from the sun? Right? These are fine. We want questions. It helps build up an idea when we ask questions too, especially if we try to answer them. Now in the chat, it's up to you. I want to hear, what ideas are your students building now? I would like it in a one sentence form. And that's because I've just found it easier to come up with the clarification and the support when you start with a sentence. So you got, what is American culture like? I would turn that around. What would be the first answer a kid could say? It would be a general thing. American culture consists of various aspects. Very, very general. But I like that, because when someone says that, the next question is, well, what are those aspects? And suddenly you're getting into a conversation there, right? So I'm just looking, there's another question. What role does water play in access to power? So you could say water plays a vital role in access to power. And then that would be, it's like a thesis statement, right? It's like a thesis statement or topic statement that you're trying to get at. I'm seeing lots of questions. There are many parts of the American election system. Great. What's the genetic variation is very important. That would be the turn. I turn that question into just a statement. And then again, this is like a thesis statement. So, if even if you did ask this question, maybe the first thing a kid says, oh, genetic variation is very important. Okay, what's the next thing someone would say? Okay, I agree. No, we want a conversation to happen. So what are the two skills that help build up that idea, right? That genetic variation is very important. What are the two skills, remember? Okay, I think I need hand motions now for you guys. If everyone can see me, the building up ideas is this. Let's see you do it. You can say it at the same time, build up ideas. And then clarify is like this, right? Put your hands together like that. Clarify. And then support is like this. Notice it's 5 fingers and not 1 finger. 1 finger, it falls down, right? So support. So those are the first 3. There's several others that we'll add when we add the conversation skills. But we've got building, which is sort of I call it the contractor skill. It's just knowing, what's needed to build up an idea. And then the actual work of building it up is really usually through clarifying and through supporting. Now, there's other thinking skills involved there too. I'm not going to, go into all the different thinking skills depending on the discipline, but those are the biggies in conversation. Yeah.
I'm just going to interrupt, and whether you can take a moment and describe or explain the applicability of what you're showing here with level 1 or 2 or young elementary learners.
Yeah, and there are, often the hand motions can help, the visuals help a lot more. I mean, I've definitely worked with a lot of, in fact, I have a first grader right now. But there's a lot of English learners in her class, so I've seen kind of what the teacher's been doing. And it's you're more patient, the conversations are shorter, but what often they do is they'll I don't like to use the word train, but they'll model and expect kids to ask the 2 questions. What does it mean? And what does it mean? What do you mean by is like the clarify question, the go-to clarify question. And can you give an example of that is the support question. So that's just sort of the beginning layer of, and then also showing what clarifying kind of is, and especially what supporting is, right? Using this kind of diagram you're seeing on the screen. So it's just kind of starting off with those basic skills, but still it's not shying away from them, right? It's not saying, oh, let's just learn the colors and the months of the year, right? No, it's saying we're building ideas here, and this is how we do it, right? And the ideas look a little different in first grade than they do in 8th grade, but they're still there, right? I think a lot of, I don't know if it's first or second grade, but what does it mean to be a good community member, right? Community members do many things to help the community. And so that's an idea that gets built, and suddenly you say, well, what do you mean by community? And then, and also as teachers listen in, for a lot of times what we need to do is this, I would say there's even more oomph for formative assessment when it comes to conversation skills, because there's so much you can get out, you can get and see in a conversation, both, strong and both needs, like, the strong side and what's needed. So that's what I would say, take a while to let kids talk, but then also listen in and figure out, okay, what's needed both conversationally, socially, content-wise, linguistic-wise, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. And so it's great to see that, in a conversation. All right, I'm going to keep going. The conversation skills, this is going to be really quick because I've already done some of them. One is initially posing a relevant idea. So you've already have some ideas here, right, that you've put on the in the chat, and there's many more. Often they come from essential questions. They come from sometimes from kids and sometimes from standards. Wherever they come from, though, the initial conversation, you want a kid to pose it, right? And then sometimes they'll brainstorm. Sometimes they'll brainstorm different ideas, and then the skill is to choose the best one, the most buildable one, right? That's how I think of a buildable idea. So choose the most relevant or buildable idea is also a skill that we have to have, right? Right, we have to have that when we're in a meeting or we're meeting people. We have ideas get thrown around. We have to choose the most buildable one because time is limited, conversation time especially. So we're really looking at building that skill of, it's not just we throw out anything, right? Then we build it up with the 2 skills of what? Clarify and support. Okay, so and that there's no particular order. Some people I've seen that they overscript conversations too much, and they say you got to clarify here, you got to support. No, it's really a matter of doing those 2 things when they're needed, and that takes time. That takes years to develop. So it's something that This isn't just a 1 year process. Oh, I'm going to teach them how to have conversations in 1 year. It's really a whole school effort. And I would say even a whole district effort. So you just kind of, just clarify, support, clarify, no particular order. Notice the size of these. If you do use some kind of graphic organizer, I tend to, don't worry so much about this, the clarify size, but the support size. Sometimes clarify makes a difference. The size is kind of the importance of it or the weight of it. If it's a piece of evidence, so let's say the big box of support came from a research-based text or something, or a reputable author or something. And then the other support up in the corner or right above it came from my uncle that I heard him talk about it last night. And he's not an expert in the field. So it's still there. It's still there. I can still put it in there, but I also have to realize they're not the same weight, right? And if this isn't important, what is these days, right? When you think about, people being able to evaluate and critique the value or weight of evidence these days, we can't keep going down the road that we're going and survive if we don't really help kids build up ideas, right, in this way. Okay. So you got clarify, support, and then there'll be another hand motion in a minute, but let's just see if we can see some of these skills in these two conversations. These are two different conversations. The first one, and this is a story about a fish who initially didn't share his scales, his shiny, nice, beautiful scales with other fish. He didn't share. He had lots of scales. So they're shiny. He got mad at the little fish. It wanted one. And then he talked to the octopus. He looked kind of scary. Yeah, but he was nice to the fish. So notice, and you can share in the chat if you want, I think that, yeah, okay, are we done? Notice that they're kind of retelling the story. There is a back and forth. If I'm standing in the back of the room, or if I'm not really observing, I'll think these kids are talking and having a decent chat. It's not. It's okay because they are back and forth. They retell the story, but they don't really respond to the prompt, right? And they don't really build on each other's ideas necessarily, right? But in contrast, he was selfish. So is that what we learn? No, like to not be selfish. Why not? Look at the fish. He didn't share and was sad. Yeah, because the other fish stopped playing with him and so he got lonely. Selfish isn't good. So to have friends, we got to share. So that does a better job, right? And you see a why not? So is this what we learned? You see some questions in there that are actually clarifying questions. You see some reference to the text a couple times, that he didn't share and was sad and they stopped playing with him. So this is kind of where we're leaning, right? We don't want kids just fill space. We want them to build up the idea. And oftentimes the prompt, like we see in here, can help kids build up that idea. Same thing here. I think the theme was you have to be patient. I respectfully disagree with you. I think it was hope. Why? Because she felt hope when her horse came back. Now, what should R have done? Instead of respectfully disagreeing right away, what should R have done? What happened there? It's actually way more common than it should be. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of should have asked for a question, asked why. They should have stuck to that idea, right? In fact, I think I have a thing here. Build up the first idea first. It's almost a mantra, especially if it's a buildable, decent idea. If it's not like something about aliens coming out of space or whatever. Build up the first idea first. That's what we do. And this is like staying on topic. It has a lot of different names, but build up the first idea first. Same thing here. We should be able to vote. I agree. Drive cars around, get licenses. I drove my uncle's car in the mountains when I was 12. Where'd you go? On the roads by his house, but then into a pond. Did you get all wet, right? You've seen conversations like this too, right? And whereas this is a great idea, the first idea, we should be able to vote. That's a claim, a strong claim. And then let's explore it. Okay, let's build that up first before we go off on driving cars. That could be another idea too, right? But we got to stick to the first one. We can't jump around, especially in the first one. If you notice, Elle could feel like, and she should have actually just said, instead of why, she should have said, well, let's get back to the first idea that I posed and build that up, right? So instead of kind of getting railroaded or cut off by the second person, who often is a bully, or some, not necessarily a bully, but someone who just kind of overdoes it. It happens a lot and it happens way too much. And some really good ideas get, shut down. So I also want you to, yeah, sorry.
So Sarah Hammerle, who you know, posed the question. So you're talking a little bit about the students and kind of the teacher's reaction. And there's a question about whether teachers should be comfortable with the calling out, the noise. It's a different environment right now. And the specific question is whether kind of raise your hand and I'll call on you, don't call out is still appropriate. If so, why? If not, why not?
Well, there's a couple questions there, right? Yeah. And are you talking like, would it be a whole class, like I'm looking at 25 faces? Is that what is that the situation?
Well, Sarah's asking it even if there are just a couple of kids in the classroom in a hybrid model. She specifically says 4 students in a classroom. Most teachers are still saying, raise your hand and I'll call on you. Should we kind of loosen that a little bit given the environment and the context now?
Honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't have a fixed answer for that, but I would say that if there is some silence, that if there's a need for someone to kind of, add to that, then it would be okay for them to, maybe not necessarily raise their hand, but just speak up. I would say I guess I wouldn't say it's okay to talk over people or interrupt, right? Just like it isn't. That would.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to get that in there, but keep going and I'll keep kind of interspersing questions as they come in.
Yeah, I mean, just to address that whole class scenario, though, even on a broader sense, we're also modeling the building of ideas in whole class discussion. So if I need a graphic organizer, maybe it's a Jamboard or whatever, where kids are looking at, or I even just have something, off in the corner of my screen, I'm going to try to show that, hey, this is what we do in here. If we're having a class discussion, we're sharing things that help build up, one or more ideas. We're not just sharing random thoughts all the time. If you don't think that, they relate, we're really trying to use this time and to practice building up ideas. So that's what I would say, however it ends up being managed, would be. Okay, so this is a quick video, but I want you to notice and it is it's a classroom setting video. But you can also just see, imagine these 2 kids were, maybe online, right? Mostly it's just the 2 kids talking, the first 2 kids. And just look for some of the skills of clarifying and supporting, okay? And then we'll see where it goes.
I would take it away. If the flower was taken down, and it would die. Another different idea. Maybe the professors have those files. Maybe they can pick them like that. Maybe that's like scratching too. Yeah, scratching
I think we can put them together.
He can swim away. The first is really slow. How is it really fast? Maybe by those fins. What? Maybe by those fins, we can drag them really quick. Yeah, maybe. Yes, maybe. I think we got one idea together. Is that I feel like when a puffer get big, the fish will be able to eat them, and when the strawberry sweets slowly, he will eat them, but he can squash himself. And the squash himself inside his body, and he will die, right? Yeah. Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah. We make one idea. Okay.
What did you guys come up with together?
My idea.
And do I just want your idea?
Our idea is that if it cuts its claws, if the fish gets to its claws and it pokes him, then he dies.
Is that kind of what you guys came up all together? Amy, it looks like you're right. Can you write that down? Our idea is.
Yeah, and I noticed Allison wrote, I love the our idea emphasis. So even this is near the end of the year, and this teacher has worked very hard on emphasizing that we come up with ideas together, and you could see how excited they were, especially the first two boys at coming up with idea. Did anyone notice when the boy on the right kind of leaned up and said, "Huh"? Usually, you don't think of teaching kids to say "huh," but that's a powerful clarify move, right? It's like saying to the other kid, I want you to say it again, clarify it. I want to know what you said, instead of just nodding your head, which is easier. If you say huh or ask another kid to clarify, you're saying, I want to listen again. I still want to do the hard work and listen to you. And then that kid also says, oh, my idea is being valued enough for someone to say huh. Right. So there's a lot of these little tiny things that we really need to emphasize and get them started, in this early on. So just we build up their abilities to have these longer conversations over time, particularly as they start clarifying and supporting. This is another conversation. I don't have a lot of time, so we don't have a lot of time to process it. I also want to model a. We have until 11:25 or so. Is that right? 11. Okay.
We can go all the way to 11:30.
If we have to. Okay. So we'll try to have a little time for conversation in the end, but I do want to share some of the videos and do this activity. So, so this was also first grade, but they just read was something about Thomas Edison as a young inventor. Was he a good or bad young inventor? And then I just want you to notice what the teacher does kind of near the end in having them self-assess their conversation. You're going to catch the end of the conversation, not the whole thing, but I just want you to see the interaction and see if you see some of the skills that are going on here, okay? Let's go.
Was Thomas Edison a good or not so good young inventor?
He was both, actually, kind of. A little of both, probably.
Tell me more about your thinking, Logan.
Because, like Dylan said, he kind of had interesting ideas, but they failed and they didn't end well, but his ideas were kind of like interesting and great almost. So yeah, that's why he's kind of both.
Tell me more, Dylan.
So while he's doing these things, he's also failing and exceeding at the same time. But he's more of failing than exceeding is what I would say.
Yeah. Just a little, maybe.
And
like he's learning almost, but that doesn't go well. So yeah, that's kind of good, actually. That's good. I would give myself a 2.5, probably.
Out of 3.
Tell me why.
Yeah. I just feel like it was a little odd a little bit, and yeah, got a little off topic, but 2.5.
Logan, can you tell me where you feel the conversation went off track?
Like when I was talking about my grandma and grandpa, kind of.
Oh, that's very thoughtful that you are thinking about the conversation and you feel like it was a little off track. I thought you made a good connection between your grandparents and the age of Thomas Edison. Like it's a good, insightful connection that you were thinking about time and age.
So it's just a quick little version, but I did, and I've seen a lot of, kind of positive comments here. Not English learners, as most of you have gathered, but I just wanted to show you kind of what first graders can do, like the thinking that they can do, and also the process of the teacher helping them self-assess. And so they didn't have anything in front of them, but you can imagine a little, student tool that even just has something like clarify or support, just as a reminder that, okay, how well did you clarify? How well did I support? What did I, and how well did we build up ideas? One of the things I really want to emphasize, and I probably already have, is if we can transfer that, if we could change that mindset from what's the bare minimum I can do for the points I want to how do I build up ideas as much as possible? And I'll say that again, how do I build up ideas as much as possible? Have you ever seen kind of kids really pushing the limit and what they can do and build, and that's what we want. We don't want them to just kind of, okay, well, how many paragraphs do I have to write? No, you're going to write. I want them to think, how many paragraphs do I need to get this idea across to whoever's reading it, right? How many whatevers do I need? And that's a big change in mindset, because I think we've so especially after early grades, early grades, they don't care as much about the points, but suddenly, third, fourth, fifth grade, and then on up, suddenly it's like a complete transfer to just the points. And so I know I'm being idealistic, but we're really trying to, if we focus on ideas, lasting ideas, we can do it. Okay, so just the sample activity that Maya and I are going to do after this video, you'll just see a classroom video. Imagine, this could be on screen, but this is the pros and cons of ice cream, an easy topic. This was the second time they'd ever done this activity. And so the other kids, after the first time, the other kids were too loud. And so they sent them out to recess, and then they just took a video of these kids. But this is very doable online as well, okay?
Pro. Ice cream is good because it comes in so much different flavors. For example, rounded necklace, rocky road, chocolate chip, and there's just so much good flavors. On the other hand, ice cream is not very good because it can give you cavities, and it's just not very good because it can give you a brain freeze if you eat it too fast. Pro. Ice cream is good because it is very good and it's delicious, and it's just like the perfect thing on a summer day, and it cools you down. On the other hand, ice cream isn't good because in summer when you have ice cream, it melts and it gets all over your shirt, and it just gives you too many cavities.
Okay, so this is a structured activity, right? Where the director, the girl on the left, is saying pro, con, and then the girl on the right says a pro and a con each time. And in between, every time you're supposed to use a hand motion and a transition. So in this case, I think you saw on the other hand a lot, but you could use on the other hand, then again, or however. That's it. More academic transitions than but, right? We're not going to use but, and we're not going to use nothing. All right, Maya?
All right.
And then what we're going to do is you're going to choose a topic, tell me the topic, and I'm going to say the topic and then pro, and try to come up with, more than one sentence about that particular pro. Don't just go down the list because the activity will be over, because you do go back and forth quite a bit, right? So if you can, and if you just say one sentence, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm not going to just go to con, right? I'm going to ask you, I say, can you give an example of that? Notice in this yellow box here, you can prompt for clarification, prompt for support, and offer idea seeds. If you're totally blank, I can say a con. I could say, well, what about mosquitoes, right? If you're doing camping or something. But so it's really, again, remember, it's not just about you talking. I am here to help. I'm a director, but I'm not just here to say, oh, you don't know anymore. I'm trying to keep you talking, right? And that's part of this structured activity. Are you ready? Oh, sorry.
I'm ready.
Purple are not optional, the brown are. So you can use those. You could say, then again, another positive is. You could add those together, but you can't skip the purple. All right?
Can't skip the purple.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Or the hand motion. And the director also uses a hand motion. Okay. So ready? So social media, you want to choose social media, right? Social media pro.
Social media work. One advantage of social media is that it allows us to connect with one another. It allows us to really stay in touch and connect with family, with friends, and have a better sense of what's going on in each other's lives.
Okay, con.
On the other hand, social media can really affect our productivity at work because it's really addicting. So it's very easy to jump into Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, for example, at any point in time during the day. And that can then affect the work that we need to get done at Elevation.
Okay. Pro, now act like a student. Pro.
One thing that's good about social media.
Don't forget the transition.
Oh, my transition. However, right? Then again,
doesn't matter. Either one. Either one.
Then again, we are able to buy things from Facebook Marketplace, which allows us to
be a kid. You would just say it allows us to buy things, maybe, right? Okay. What I'm doing, you guys, because teachers tend to, be very eloquent and fill up the talk time, but kids often won't. So I want
my bosses are on the line, Jeff.
So just say you can buy things, and then I say, because I'm the director, I say, "Oh, can you give an example of something that you buy while you're working?" I'm kidding, but no. Can you give an example?
Something that I could buy is,
for example,
something I might buy are new shoes.
Okay. Have you done that recently? You see, it's not really a conversation. I'm just trying to get you to say more about this particular con, right? It's almost like you're trying to get kids to think and talk in paragraphs. This is one way to do it. This is a structured activity, but you're trying to get the paragraph level and not just the one word or the one sentence level, right? And you're also adding these transitions in here. Now, at the very end, even though we didn't, we would have gone longer, the very end, I would say, okay, the director says, I think you leaned on the side of pro because, and I could list any kind of reason. I could say your face lit up, you got louder, you used more gestures, you said more examples. It doesn't really matter at that point, but I want the director to be listening just to and make that decision between pro and con, right? Or the sides. So it's kind of a lot going on there, even though at its essence, it's just, you saying pros and cons.
A lot going on. Props to those kids.
Yeah.
They did well.
Yeah, and great job. Thank you for helping. So there's different variations of it, right? Just so that the director has to do that listening for the transitions, has to listen for paragraph level responses in a way. Even if it's a second sentence, that's fine, right? Even if you got younger kids, or even if it doesn't, and they don't have to be complete sentences. We're talking communication. We're really trying to emphasize communication, right? We're really trying to emphasize that. And over time, they'll start using those second, third, and fourth sentences. Here is a breakout groups, and the bit.ly down there is just, it was from another training idea, but I couldn't figure out in time how to, and so I changed it for today, but I didn't change the bit.ly name of it. But you can go bit.ly /Zwiers, and you'll find those different activities. And those are what I use like normally for online, because this is such a huge group. We're not doing it. We just did the model. I would have you guys do it on your own. I would just do breakout groups, and it would just look like you just saw. Talker picks a topic, says pros and cons, but you can have these directions on the bit.ly or whatever document you guys use, the shared document, and then have the topics, and then in the breakout groups, they can look at that, right? Because once you break out, you can't see this anymore. Any questions? Oh, we're almost out of time. Okay, I'll keep going. This is also on the document. Some of you have seen this, Stronger and Clear Each Time. It's basically you meet with 2 or more pair shares in a row, okay? There's a video that's, I think it's on my website. If not, I'll let you know it's a video. It's a high school video, but it's a little bit long. It's about 6 minutes. So you can watch that. I think it's up there. If it's not, I'll put it up on my website. And then basically you just ask a question, you have multiple pair shares, but it gets stronger and clearer each time. That emphasis on strength or support and the emphasis on clarify. So every time we share something, it should get stronger and clearer. Just like, if you teach 5 classes, often your classes are stronger and clearer the 4th and 5th time if you're not too exhausted and, if your head's not on the desk, like I was always. So you have different prompts. And then I think that's about it. I have a pre and a post writing. For the pro-con or any of these activities, really, you could have a pre and a post writing aspect of it where kids pre-write, they do the oral activity, whatever it is, structured interaction, conversation, doesn't matter. And then you have a post-write. Notice this kid's post-write got a lot better because of his pre-write, and he underlined the stuff he got or stole or borrowed from other kids. So that's the nice thing is kids get to see their own value of talking with others, and so you can see they get to see it, and you get to see it. You can collect it, right? So I've only got a couple minutes left. I think what I'm going to do is I don't know if I can skip ahead or not. You've got directions here, and I'm not going to have you do this, but I would normally have you pick an activity and strengthen it with authentic communication features. Okay, so in here, you could pick any of these. I think I had think, pair, share, and you just do the things I've already talked about today, where you're making sure students know they're talking and listening to build up an idea, have them ask a clarifying support question, and then I would maybe give them different texts if I felt they were going to share too much of the same thing. So I would give them engineer, kind of like a jigsaw. Okay. I think that's it. There's a couple other things, I think. I'm not sure. Sorry, I was a little bit rushed at the end. No, that's it. I made it.
Jeff, thank you. At a time when everyone is struggling to figure out how best to engage students, how to ensure that they are engaged with each other, you've just laid out a roadmap with 5, 8, 10 different ways and moves and activities that folks can turn right back into their classroom and use. And that's as valuable as anything.